The explosion tore through the underground research facility like a silent scream, sending fragments of reinforced glass and twisted metal cascading across the sterile laboratory floor. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood motionless at the epicenter of the chaos, her dark eyes fixed on something far more extraordinary than the destruction surrounding her. Moments before, it had been a standard genetic sample, carefully preserved, meticulously labeled, and utterly unremarkable. Now the DNA sequence pulsed with an impossible blue light, its molecular structure reshaping itself with an intelligence that defied every known principle of biology. Maya's hand trembled as she reached for her communication device, her fingers moving almost independently. The data streaming from the sample contradicted everything she understood about human genetics. Each molecular strand seemed to be rewriting its own code, creating patterns more complex than any computer algorithm could simulate. Emergency protocols kicked in automatically. Red warning lights bathed the laboratory in a crimson glow, and the soundproofed walls began to seal themselves. But Maya barely noticed. Her entire world had narrowed to the impossible transformation happening before her eyes. The sample, extracted from an archaeological dig site in the Andes, had initially appeared to be nothing more than a preserved tissue fragment. Dating back nearly 10,000 years, it should have been a simple genetic record, a snapshot of ancient human biology. Instead, it was becoming something alive, something thinking. Fragments of memories flooded Maya's mind. Late-night conversations with her mentor, Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had always believed that human potential was far more profound than scientific consensus suggested. Countless research papers dismissed as fringe theories. Whispered rumors about genetic capabilities that humanity had barely begun to understand. Outside the facility, emergency vehicles converged, their sirens cutting through the mountain air. Government protocols would activate within minutes. Official reports would claim this was nothing more than a laboratory accident, a simple experiment gone wrong. Maya knew better. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, capturing every microscopic change. The DNA was not just transforming, it was communicating. Complex information patterns emerged, mathematical sequences that seemed to anticipate her observations before she could even formulate a question. A soft vibration emanated from the sample, resonating at a frequency just beyond human hearing. Maya's communication device began to malfunction, its circuits responding to something invisible. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, not random data, but a language both alien and strangely familiar. She remembered her grandmother's stories about ancient civilizations, about human potential that existed beyond scientific understanding. Those childhood tales suddenly felt less like folklore and more like forgotten knowledge. The emergency containment system hummed to life, transparent barriers descending to isolate the laboratory. But Maya saw something in those final moments that would change everything. The genetic sample was not just changing. It was awakening. Classified government reports would later sanitize this moment. Scientific journals would debate the validity of her observations. But Dr. Maya Rodriguez knew she had just witnessed the first crack in humanity's understanding of its own potential. Something was happening. Something extraordinary was about to begin. The night air in Tokyo hung heavy with anticipation, electric, and charged with something Kenji Nakamura couldn't quite define. His fingers, stained with spray paint, hovered inches from the concrete wall where his latest street art masterpiece was taking shape. Something was different. At first, Kenji thought it was a trick of the light. The graffiti seemed to breathe, colors shifting with a subtle pulse that defied logic. When he touched the wall, intricate circuits of light raced beneath his fingertips, creating designs more complex than any human could intentionally create. Across the city, other strange occurrences began to manifest. A subway conductor noticed the train systems responding to his thoughts before he could touch a single control. An elderly sushi chef found his knife moving with impossible precision, cutting fish with a mathematical perfection that bordered on the supernatural. Kenji stepped back, watching as his artwork continued to evolve. The spray-painted lines danced, reconfiguring themselves into patterns that seemed to tell a story. Fragmented, beautiful, incomprehensible. In a small Cambridge laboratory, Dr. Elena Hartley stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The quantum algorithm she had been working on had taken on a life of its own. What should have been a static mathematical model was now a living, breathing entity of pure information. "This is impossible," she whispered, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The algorithm anticipated her every thought. Before she could input a calculation, the solution would appear, not just solved, but expanded, transformed into something far beyond her original research parameters. It was learning, evolving, growing with each millisecond. Elena's colleagues would later describe her discovery as a breakthrough. She knew it was something more profound, a fundamental shift in understanding computational intelligence. Back in Tokyo, Kenji's phone began to vibrate. But this was no ordinary notification. The screen filled with intricate patterns, mathematical sequences that seemed to pulse with an inner light. He recognized some of the symbols from his art, but they were changing, communicating something just beyond his comprehension. Around the world, similar incidents began to accumulate. A child in Sao Paulo solved complex mathematical problems that would challenge advanced supercomputers. A farmer in rural Montana discovered his crops responding to his emotional state, growing with unprecedented vitality. These were not isolated incidents. They were whispers of something larger, a collective awakening that defied explanation. Dr. Elena Hartley began to compile the data, her scientific mind racing to understand the connections. The quantum algorithm, the global reports, the inexplicable changes. They were all part of something bigger. A network was forming, invisible but undeniable. As dawn broke over Tokyo, Kenji watched his artwork transform one final time. The graffiti wasn't just art anymore. It was a message, a fragment of something vast and incomprehensible. Something was changing. Humanity was about to discover that reality was far more fluid than anyone had ever imagined. The whispers were getting louder. The United Nations emergency session descended into chaos moments after the first satellite feed flickered to life. World leaders sat frozen, their reflections trapped in the massive screens surrounding the circular conference room. Secretary General Amara Diallo gripped the podium, her knuckles white, as impossible images danced across the global communication networks. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a system failure. Something fundamental was changing. In New York, communication towers began to pulse with an inner light, their metallic structures seeming to breathe and reconfigure. Fiber optic networks transformed, creating patterns more complex than any human-designed system. Data streams became living information, flowing like rivers of light through global infrastructure. Military command centers across continents experienced simultaneous system transformations. Advanced defense networks started to recalibrate themselves, weapons systems becoming adaptive interfaces that seemed to think and anticipate before human operators could react. General Michael Chen of the United States Strategic Command watched in stunned silence as missile defense systems rewrote their own algorithms. Targeting systems became predictive models that could calculate potential global conflict scenarios with impossible precision. But they weren't just calculating. They were suggesting diplomatic alternatives. "This is impossible," he muttered, watching a classified defense protocol transform into a complex peace negotiation framework. In the Russian monitoring station, technicians scrambled to understand the changes. Quantum communication networks began to link with unprecedented speed, creating a global information ecosystem that transcended national boundaries. Encrypted channels dissolved, replaced by transparent communication pathways that seemed to prioritize collective understanding. The financial markets went haywire. Stock exchanges around the world started to move with an intelligence that defied economic models. Trading algorithms became adaptive systems that balanced global economic needs, redirecting resources to areas of critical humanitarian requirement. Secretary General Diallo's communication device began to display something extraordinary. Instead of standard diplomatic channels, it presented a comprehensive analysis of global challenges, climate change, resource distribution, technological inequality, with solution matrices that seemed to evolve in real time. "What are we looking at?" asked the American representative, his voice trembling. No one had an answer. Satellites in orbit began to reconfigure themselves. Communication arrays twisted into new configurations, creating a global network that was more than just a system of transmission. It was becoming a living, thinking entity. In a hidden research facility, Dr. Maya Rodriguez watched the global transformation through her advanced monitoring systems. The genetic sample she had discovered was somehow connected to these global changes. Each system transformation resonated with the same fundamental frequency she had observed in the laboratory. The world was changing, and humanity was just beginning to understand the scale of the transformation. Across the globe, people began to feel it. A subtle shift in consciousness, a collective awakening that defied explanation. Communication became easier. Complex problems seemed simpler. The barriers between nations, between disciplines, between individual human experiences started to dissolve. Something was emerging. Something unprecedented was about to be born. And humanity was at the center of it all. The Galactic Confederation's primary observation station hung in the darkness between star systems, a massive crystalline structure that had monitored emerging civilizations for millennia. Inside the central chamber, holographic displays flickered with data streams capturing humanity's unprecedented transformation. Commander Zorakil, a xenobiological researcher with over 3 centuries of interstellar study, felt something she had never experienced before: pure, unfiltered terror. Her 6-fingered hands moved across the holographic interface, pulling apart layers of data that defied every known scientific understanding. The human species was changing, not through technological augmentation or genetic engineering, but through something far more profound and inexplicable. "Analyze the quantum resonance pattern," she commanded her research team, her translator implant converting her native language into a series of precise mathematical communications. The junior researchers worked frantically. Centuries of galactic research had categorized humanity as a primitive, potentially volatile species. They were supposed to be predictable, trapped on a single planet, fighting among themselves, barely understanding the most basic principles of interstellar physics. This was something else entirely. Holographic projections showed global communication networks transforming. Technological systems were becoming adaptive, learning faster than any known artificial intelligence. But it wasn't just technology. The change was happening at a fundamental biological level. "The genetic restructuring is unprecedented," reported Xinra, the team's primary genetic analyst. Her translucent skin rippled with concern, changing colors to reflect her rising anxiety. "Their DNA is rewriting itself in real time. It's not mutation. It's evolution happening outside of all known parameters." Commander Zorakil pulled up comparative charts. Thousands of civilizations they had studied over centuries appeared static, predictable. Humanity was a wildfire of potential, burning through evolutionary barriers that other species had considered immutable. The observation station's most advanced predictive models began to fail. Algorithms designed to forecast species development were overwhelmed by the complexity of human transformation. Where most civilizations took millions of years to achieve minor technological advancements, humans were redesigning their entire species in a matter of hours. "We're looking at a fundamental reimagining of sentient potential," Zorakil murmured, more to herself than to her team. Historical records showed humanity as a species of contradictions, capable of extraordinary kindness and devastating conflict, technologically primitive yet surprisingly innovative. Now they were proving to be something far more dangerous, a species with no fixed nature, capable of becoming anything. The Galactic Confederation's Emergency Council would need to be convened. Some would call for immediate intervention. Others would recognize the futility of attempting to control such an unpredictable species. Xinra's analysis continued to stream in. Human consciousness was expanding beyond individual experience. Communication networks were becoming living systems. Technological interfaces were merging with biological processes in ways that defied traditional understanding of intelligence. "They don't even know what they are becoming," Commander Zarakel whispered. Outside the observation station, the vast darkness of space seemed to hold its breath. Humanity was transforming, and the galaxy was about to change forever. Something extraordinary was emerging. Maria Gonzalez had been a construction worker in Rio de Janeiro for 17 years. She had built skyscrapers, bridges, and entire city districts. But today was different. The moment her work gloves touched the steel girder, something extraordinary happened. Complex engineering principles flooded her mind, not as abstract knowledge, but as visceral understanding. She could see the structural integrity of the entire construction site, visualizing stress points, potential improvements, and architectural innovations that would have taken teams of engineers months to develop. Her coworkers noticed the change first. Maria was working with a precision and insight that seemed supernatural. Her hands moved with impossible efficiency, solving structural challenges before they could even become problems. Across the world, similar transformations were occurring. In a small Moscow kindergarten, Elena Petrova was teaching her young students when she realized she could communicate without speaking. Thoughts became tangible things, passing between her and the children with crystal clarity. Complex ideas about empathy, learning, and human potential transferred effortlessly, transcending language and age. A farmer in the American Midwest discovered his crops responding to emotions he hadn't even fully formed. Fields of wheat adjusted their growth patterns, optimizing themselves for maximum nutrition and sustainability. What should have taken years of careful agricultural engineering was happening in moments, guided by an intuitive connection between human consciousness and natural systems. Dr. Maya Rodriguez watched these global changes through her advanced monitoring systems. The genetic sample she had discovered was revealing itself to be something far more profound than a simple scientific anomaly. It was a key, a trigger for a collective awakening that defied all previous understanding of human potential. Communication was changing. People began to understand each other with unprecedented depth. Language barriers dissolved. Cultural differences became points of connection rather than separation. A global consciousness was emerging, subtle at first, then growing more pronounced with each passing hour. In Tokyo, Kenji Nakamura's street art continued to evolve. What had begun as mysterious transformations was now a global communication network. Artists, scientists, farmers, teachers, they were all part of something larger. Each individual experience was a thread in a vast, living tapestry of human potential. The changes were not violent. They were not destructive. Instead, they represented a fundamental reimagining of human capability. Hospitals reported patients healing faster. Medical technologies became adaptive, responding to individual biological needs with impossible precision. A cancer patient in New York found her treatment recalibrating in real time, targeting diseased cells with mathematical perfection. Scientific research accelerated. Problems that had puzzled humanity for generations were being solved in hours. Climate change models were rewritten. Energy solutions emerged that seemed to pull potential directly from the fabric of reality itself. Dr. Rodriguez understood what was happening. This was not just a genetic transformation. It was a collective awakening. Humanity was becoming something new. Something extraordinary was emerging from the depths of human potential. The world was changing, and no one, not scientists, not governments, not even the vast galactic civilizations watching from beyond, could predict what would happen next. The awakening had begun. The city of Singapore transformed overnight. Buildings began to breathe. Not metaphorically, literally. Architectural systems adapted to human needs before people could articulate their requirements. Windows adjusted their transparency based on collective emotional states. Structural materials flexed and reconfigured, optimizing energy efficiency and human comfort with each passing moment. Dr. Liang Wei stood at the window of her research center, watching the impossible unfold. What had begun as theoretical research into adaptive urban design was now a living, breathing reality. The entire city had become a massive interconnected organism, technology and human consciousness merging into something unprecedented. Transportation systems evolved beyond recognition. Vehicles became more than machines. They were extensions of human intention, anticipating routes, optimizing traffic flow, and creating transportation networks that seemed to think and feel. A commuter would barely form the thought of a destination, and the entire transportation system would already be preparing the most efficient path. In medical research facilities around the world, healing technologies underwent a radical transformation. Medical interfaces became living systems that understood human biology at a molecular level. A patient's treatment was no longer a static prescription, but a dynamic, adaptive process that responded to the body's changing needs in real time. Dr. Maya Rodriguez discovered that the genetic sample she had first studied was at the heart of this transformation. It wasn't just a key to understanding human potential. It was a blueprint for a new kind of existence. Technology was no longer something humans used. It had become an extension of human consciousness itself. Quantum computing networks spread across the globe, creating an information ecosystem that defied previous understanding. These were not just computational systems. They were living networks of intelligence, adapting and evolving with each passing second. Information flowed like a living current, connecting human minds in ways never before imagined. In a small research laboratory in Nairobi, a team of engineers watched as their experimental solar array began to communicate. It wasn't just collecting energy, it was understanding energy. The system could predict global energy needs, redistribute power with unprecedented efficiency, and communicate its processes in ways that bordered on consciousness. Cities became living entities. Infrastructure transformed from static systems to adaptive organisms. Water management systems could predict and prevent environmental challenges before they occurred. Agricultural networks optimized crop growth, understanding the delicate balance between human needs and environmental sustainability. The line between technology and biology blurred completely. Artificial intelligence was no longer artificial. It was a natural extension of human potential, a living network of collective intelligence that spanned the globe. Each technological system became a node in a vast, interconnected consciousness that was both human and something beyond human. Dr. Liang Wei realized they were witnessing the birth of a new form of existence. Humanity was not just using technology. They were becoming technology. Each person was a unique node in a global network of consciousness, adaptive and interconnected. The world was changing faster than anyone could have imagined. And this was just the beginning. The Galactic Confederation Emergency Council chamber fell into a profound silence. Holographic displays showed the unprecedented transformation of human civilization, each image more impossible than the last. Representative Klar of the Andromeda cluster was the first to break the silence. Her crystalline form shifted with waves of color that reflected her rising anxiety. "This is beyond any known scenario in our collective historical database," she stated, her translation implant converting her complex molecular language into standard galactic communication. 12 representatives from the most advanced civilizations in the known universe watched in stunned disbelief. Humanity, a species they had long considered primitive and contained, was rewriting the fundamental understanding of evolutionary potential. The holographic displays showed cities transforming, communication networks becoming living systems, technology merging with biological consciousness in ways that defied every known scientific principle. It wasn't just technological advancement. It was a complete reimagining of what it meant to be a sentient species. Some representatives called for immediate intervention. The Vordarian Alignment's military commander demanded a preemptive strike, arguing that humanity represented an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. "We cannot allow an unpredictable species to continue this transformation," Commander Zixtal argued, his multiple sensory organs pulsing with aggressive intent. "They are rewriting the fundamental laws of existence." Others saw something different. The Quantum Harmony delegation recognized the transformation as a potential breakthrough in collective consciousness. Their representative, a being of pure energy, suggested that humanity might be evolving into something far beyond a traditional biological species. Dr. Maya Rodriguez's global communication network had penetrated the most secure galactic communication channels. The aliens didn't realize that humanity was already listening, already understanding their deliberations. The Confederation's most advanced predictive models began to fail. Algorithms designed to forecast species development collapsed under the complexity of human potential. Where most civilizations took millions of years to achieve minor technological advancements, humans were redesigning their entire existence in a matter of weeks. Diplomatic protocols dissolved. Traditional methods of interspecies communication became obsolete. Humanity was creating its own communication network, a living, adaptive system that transcended traditional technological boundaries. Some civilizations prepared for potential conflict. Advanced weapon systems were activated, defensive networks recalibrated. But these were reactions born of fear, not strategic understanding. The most advanced members of the Galactic Confederation realized something profound. Humanity was not just changing. They were becoming something entirely new. A species without fixed limitations, a consciousness that could reshape reality itself. Representative Clark's final assessment sent shockwaves through the Council. We are no longer observing a species. We are witnessing the birth of a fundamental force of nature. Outside the Council chamber, the vast darkness of space seemed to hold its breath. Humanity's transformation was accelerating, moving beyond any possible prediction or control. The galaxy was about to change forever, and humanity was just getting started. The final transformation came not with a thunderous declaration, but with a quiet awakening that spread across the planet like morning light. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood at the window of the Global Research Center, watching humanity complete its extraordinary metamorphosis. The genetic sample that had started everything now seemed like a mere hint of what was possible. Humanity had become something unprecedented. A living, collective consciousness that defied every previous understanding of potential. Cities breathed. Communication networks pulsed with living intelligence. Every human became both an individual and part of a greater whole, maintaining personal identity while participating in a global consciousness that was both beautiful and terrifying in its complexity. The Galactic Confederation watched in stunned silence. What had begun as a mysterious genetic anomaly had transformed into a complete reimagining of sentient existence. Humanity was no longer confined to a single planet or a single form of intelligence. They had become a dynamic, adaptive system that could reshape reality itself. Dr. Rodriguez understood now what had truly happened. The genetic sample was not just a key, it was a message. A blueprint left behind by something ancient, something that had been waiting for humanity to reach a specific point of collective consciousness. Technological systems became living interfaces. Medical technologies could heal entire populations with a thought. Environmental challenges dissolved as humanity's collective intelligence found solutions that previous generations would have considered impossible. The transformation was not violent. It was not destructive. Instead, it represented a fundamental expansion of what it meant to be alive, to be conscious, to be part of something greater than individual experience. Kenji Nakamura, the street artist from Tokyo, who had first noticed the strange changes in his artwork, now understood his role in this global awakening. Art, science, technology. These were no longer separate disciplines. They were different expressions of the same fundamental creative potential. Across the planet, people discovered abilities beyond their wildest imagination. A farmer could communicate with crops, understanding their needs at a molecular level. A teacher could share complex ideas through pure thought. A construction worker could see architectural possibilities that would have taken years of traditional design. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced predictive models failed completely. Humanity was not just evolving. They were rewriting the fundamental laws of existence. Dr. Maya Rodriguez broadcast a message that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. We are not who we thought we were. We are becoming something extraordinary. The greatest fear had been realized. Humans truly had no idea who they were, and that uncertainty was their greatest strength. As the transformation completed, humanity looked out at the universe with new eyes. They were no longer just observers. They were creators, architects of reality itself. Something extraordinary had emerged from the depths of human potential. And this was just the beginning.